Alrighty, alrighty. Jeez, little Alamoto looks good. Greetings, Dumela. Thank you so much for coming in. I know that I was meant to come in yesterday, but we're up today, and we have one or two messages that I just need to share. And I think the right people will find the message and will be able to come on and join this live. And so I appreciate those who are joining. I appreciate the people that have come through and are listening. So yeah, tonight I have been asked to speak, and I think it is for an hour or so, around different relationship systems. And yeah, please, you are definitely able to comment, you're able to like, you're able to share, repost, whatever it is that you need to do, to engage in this topic. So I've been asked to speak around the different relationship systems that may exist. Speak about relationship from a place of purpose, get into the different systems that are there, what are some of the things that are then contributing to the success of those systems. And then obviously we can get into what it looks like for those systems to thrive and what a success look like within those systems and how we move through in those, right? So, excuse me, I think the space where I want to start is for us to understand potentially that relationships within the context of our own sort of indigenous systems were places of purpose, okay? At their base, relationships are places of purpose, not necessarily places of affection and love and all these wonderful things that we've added now to them, which are not bad. But if relationships are places of purpose, then it is critical for us to then understand what the purpose was, okay? And those purposes obviously would then have come from the different families that are there. And so your purpose would come through, my purpose would come through, we'd get together and potentially we'd say, okay, our purpose requires your effort and you could be able to assist us in terms of X, Y, Z, okay? That is at the base of the relationship. We've seen what it is that you are able to do, the anointing on your life, what you're able to offer, and we would like to have a part of that. We'd like you to help us reach particular goals. We'd like you to help us reach particular things, primarily because we are the people that we are and we want to get to those goals, right? That's the first thing. So relationships at their base have purpose. Because they have purpose at their base, they have people that would then also be able to assist them. So because relationships have the people that are able to assist them from a spiritual perspective, there may be people, Molo Machabala. It's a pleasure to have you here. The people that would assist the relationships are also then the people that are deeply intertwined with the purpose. Okay, so let's walk together. The relationship has purpose. You meet an individual that is there to assist you with that particular purpose. Then the two of you are able to move together within the context of that purpose. You are trying to get there. And because you're trying to get there, there will be people from a spiritual perspective who will be assigned to assist that relationship, okay? They would then be able, from both sides, right? From the one partner and the other. And these are the people that, thank you so much, Anna Matete, these are the people that would be able to engage at the level of understanding each other. These are the people that are going to be able to say, don't be so quick to leave, or don't be so quick to do this. This is why we're here. These are the reasons why we chose this person. These are the reasons why we're moving in this way. And so they will be able to assist it in that regard, right? Of course, let's also understand that you still have free will, okay? It's not to say that all of these things are going to be done outside of your will. You still have will, you still have a way to go, but it is that those people are there and you have agreed and you are moving in purpose, okay? And these are the people that are meant to assist you. Now, the one place that I do want to come to and say is sometimes the purpose is going to supersede, quote unquote, what you may think are traditional norms, okay? We tend to think that it would be the most appropriate thing, the better thing for everybody to then come to the space of saying, I have met with this person, we're going to be together, we're going to learn about each other, we're going to then have mahadi, and from the place of that being paid, then we're going to have children, then we're going to grow old together, and so forth and so on. Now, from the perspective of at least the ancients and the ones that would want me to release this message, some relationships achieve a particular thing very quickly, and because they achieve the thing that they're meant to achieve, then they get to be closed and they're done, okay? Some purposes include the establishment of things outside of the relationship. So because the purpose requires you to start the business with the person, that's okay, you get together, you start the business, and then you are moving in the space of the purpose. As you move within the space of the purpose, it may then be revealed that the two of you were brought together to start that business, and after you start the business, then other people begin sanbona mbali yasembali. Then the people are able to bring in, these are elders, they're able to bring in a sense of understanding. You have achieved the space, right? You've achieved what you needed to achieve. You can then come out of the relationship from a romantic perspective, but stay in the business, because we couldn't come to you and tell you that we wanted, thank you so much, Machabala, that we wanted you and this person to come into a space of starting the business together, because you can't hear us outside of the context of romance, okay? Now, so, and that's a point that potentially is to be made, is that there are some relationships that are key for business, are key for spiritual gain, are key for goodness, but are not romantic in nature. It's easy for these elders to bring you to the place of romance, because that's the way we have understood relating to each other, particularly between men and women. So it's also important for us to then perhaps get to the place of asking the question, what would it look like for people to relate at purpose levels without the romantic engagement or entanglement in there? And that's a question that we do need to ask, particularly in this generation, because also in times previous, there were situations where some people were to be asked, thank you so much, Makune. Some people would ask, we need that particular family's ability, and we need to give that person or that family a gift in order for us to be able to get to where we need to get, because we recognize that that family has a particular gifting. We recognize that they're good at this thing that we need in order to achieve our purpose, right? The easiest way to get into that family would have been through marriage, but there were other ways, and there still are other ways to engage in a conversation between families that achieves purpose at the end, whatever that purpose is. Okay, so it's important for us to then also understand what the purpose is at the level of the family. So if our purpose is to teach and advise, which that it is, then we need to also get with people that are going to understand how to grow our teaching ability, right? That need to also understand how to grow us in teaching different things. How are we going to do that? Potentially, you're going to get into relationship with somebody who's going to teach how to grow in terms of spirituality, how to grow in terms of wealth, how to grow in terms of this, how to grow in terms of how you engage with people, your relational sort of IQ or your EQ. And so there are going to be different things that you would necessarily be brought to with people so that they train you on how to grow and how to grow your teaching ability, because you said you agree that you are a teacher, and so you move in that purpose area. Once there is a recognition that you can benefit, from the other person's gifting, it is then crucial for you to recognize what that other person's benefit is also going to be from you. Okay? I am just speaking within the context of these relationships, whatever they may look like. And maybe let's stick to the romantic ones, because the other ones get a little bit complex for people. But within the context of the relationship, it should be very clear right at the beginning. If I'm saying that I would want to be in relationship with yourself, you need to be clear on what the benefit would be for your family's purpose. I need to be clear on what the benefit would be for my family's purpose. And so if the two of us are clear on what the benefit is, then we're able to also negotiate what the reward looks like. Okay? I hope we're still following and we're still together. Because when we don't negotiate what the reward looks like, then we're in the relationship simply to just go on and on. We don't know what success looks like. We don't know what good looks like. And so we've got to be able to then potentially define what good looks like within the context of the both of us flourishing. Okay, so if the two of us are getting into relationship, the three of us, the four, whatever the case might be, if we are getting into relationship together, we then need to be able to define what that good looks like. Okay, and then define what the rewards of the relationship look like and how they are going to be dispersed. So again, if I'm a gardener living in my divine masculine, and you, for the sake of heterosexual relationships, you are the garden, I am gardening. Good evening, divine one. So you are the garden, I am the gardener. I work in your garden. You are then able to define which parts of the garden I'm able to work on. But that is also decided on when we decide to get into the relationship. So if I say to you, I want to be in relationship with you, this is the purpose of the home, these are the areas in which I think that you would be able to assist me, and these are the rewards that I bring. What are the rewards that I bring? I bring my wisdom to you. Not just my wisdom, the ability to pray for you. I bring my this to you. I understand that there are things about you that I would like to benefit from, right? And so in benefiting from those things, these are the rewards that I'm willing to give to you. My money is necessarily going to be yours. When we have achieved a certain goal, these are the things that we're going to get to. Here, it's also important that we remember, as a side note, it may be that some relationships that you enter into were agreed upon at a higher level, and you are now going to be the ones that put in the work, that are going to put in the, if you will, space, or you're going to occupy that relationship. And in occupying the relationship, what then means, thank you so much, Success, for the gift. What then it means is you are going to get to a spot where you're going to have to ask what the agreement was. Okay, you're going to have to, if there is a sense in which this relationship is something that has been brought together by elders and so forth, you would then, or let's use language that people also would understand, by God and the like, you would then need to ask, what is the agreement that was made? What is the space that we're allowed to operate in? What does it look like for us to be successful? What is the agreement? And in that agreement, what are the things that we can agree to? What are the things that we can do? What are the things that we can't do, right? Now, that is within the context of a relationship. And I do want to say, and it sounds a bit dodgy for me to say this, sometimes the agreements that are made will not be agreements that sit well, quote unquote, within what we may call the moral argument. So it may be that there is a need. Let me make this example. It may be that there is a need that exists within a family for a particular child to come about. That child needs to possess business acumen. That child perhaps will need to go through a little bit of some hardship to build resilience, but also that child needs to be very strong in terms of their technical ability. And so your elders as a man are looking for that kind of child. And they will then search for a particular family that will be able to give that child. Please understand what I said, to give the child. And then, because that is the need that they have, right? They may be able to whisper to you as the man, Oguti, we need this kind of child. And this kind of child is needed now because there are certain things that we need to accomplish by way of you birthing that child, okay? And then they find somebody. And they find somebody that they're able to bring to you. And that person was selected particularly to bring about this purpose of this child. Now, the question then becomes, right, we have sort of come into the space or bought into the view, rightly perhaps, that anybody that enters the garden without permission is somebody that's got to apologize for entering the garden without permission. But what happens when it is that these elders have decided that there is a particular individual and we would like to have this particular child with this person? We believe that our seed is going to benefit from coming into this fertile ground, and we would like a child in this space. And the elders on the other side then tend to look at the situation and say, all right, we agree to this. We're going to move with you. We're going to allow for the two people to get into relationship with each other. But then from there, what's important is we need to then engage at the level of how do you move? Okay, how do we move from there? So if there is that agreement that is there, and I'm glad, B, that you're here because you'll give us a little bit more insight. Once there is that agreement at that spiritual level and then the people come together and they produce a child, no one has been damaged. I just perhaps want to put that out there. No one has been damaged because there was agreement at a spiritual level that there is entrance that we are going to allow, that this seed needs to come in and sit in this ground. And because it needs to sit in this ground, because we have a particular purpose with the child, it may even be that these people are not necessarily going to require that the mother plays an active role in the context of the child's life, because there's another mother that's meant to come in and actually go and play this role. And so they orchestrate that we wanted the child, we've paid for the child, we've brought this kind of, if you will, understanding that this is what we wanted from you. These are the things that we're going to give to you. We're going to give this in the natural. We're going to give this in the spiritual. We're healing this particular part, but we're not asking for you to necessarily raise this child. As soon as the child is born, we are going to come in. We are going to take the child, and the child will grow with their father, and everything will be okay. Right? Because at some point, it may be that we want a certain individual to then go and raise this child, because remember, we said to you, there are things that we want to bring about. Okay, this child needs to be technically sound. They need to be business minded. They need to be this. And your daughter possesses the building blocks that we want to be able to bring the child about, but they may not necessarily possess the building blocks that we require to raise the child. Okay, so what that then means is that the agreement has been made, and if the agreement has been made, then the one partner leaves, right? And I'm going to use the woman leaving just to keep this example as fresh as it is. Then the woman is out, and then the man is raising the child, meets another woman. They then potentially get into another relationship agreement, because this one has been concluded, right? It was just created particularly for the purpose of the child's existence. Then you get into another one that says we need to raise children and you need to have other children here so that we can move together in fulfilling this purpose. We needed this child from that family in order to come and bring this thing about. Right. So let me take a bit of a detour here. The purposes of families are all, as it were, sort of joined together in certain respects. And because the purposes of families are joined together, your womb may be needed by this particular family to bring about a child that potentially they will want to raise, or it may be your family that requires a child that they want to raise. They're not looking for a father to stay, quote unquote. They're looking for a child that will be born, that will move through the ranks of the family's issues, heal those issues by their very existence, and then bring about a sense of, as it were, self-actualization, not just within the child's life, but broadly within the family. And so they orchestrate that we're going to need a particular kind of individual to come and impregnate you, but his leaving you is not necessarily something that you ought to be crying about if you're tuned into what we're doing. If you're tuned into what the purpose looks like, he was being utilized to achieve a particular part, and in achieving that particular part, he can then leave because he was not the one that was selected to raise the child. And so the child needs to belong to the mother's family, so that then when it is that the other person that is meant to raise them comes about, they are there and meet the right person at the point that they are supposed to, and that person will not have a problem raising the child in order for them to move into the purpose area that they need to move into. Dumela naledi entle yame. So askis mutlats. I didn't mean to. I apologize. What's critical also is that so I'm speaking about relationships, the different kinds of relationship agreements that exist, and how we then move, particularly from the spiritual into the natural. So if there's agreement in the spiritual that this person is not going to raise your child, but they are going to give you a child, tune in. Tune in. Perhaps I'm touching on your studio, and I apologize. But the person was required to give the child, not necessarily to raise the child. The one who will raise the child will come to raise the child with you. Sometimes the one that potentially will come to raise the child is equipped to bring out the best that individual that planted the seed is not equipped to do. This is why I'm saying that there are different people that are interlinked. So if that man was actualized, if the man was really great in what it is that they needed to do, okay, and what they were needing to bring about, then yes, we would have stayed with that person. We would have moved with that person. We would have grown with that person. But because they have not necessarily done the work, we still need the child to come about, because the child is promised as per destiny. But the one that will bring out the best in the child is still coming. And so because the one that will bring out the best in the child is still coming, we are going to allow for the child to exist. We're going to raise this child in the way that it is raised, so that when the one that needs to be here to raise it and bring out the best in it arrives, boom, he is able to do so. Okay, so that's an agreement that can happen in the spiritual, because they can recognize, Wuti, this one is great. I mean, this person has got great seed, but he's not able to tend to his own seed. That doesn't take away from the greatness of the seed. I just want to, let me just say that out loud. The presence, so the inability of the gardener to take care of his seed does not negate the greatness of the seed that the gardener has planted. So the child's existence, or the child is still great even though they come from a seed that is great, but the gardener was not able to water and to bring about the best of that. This is also why, and I've said it before, right? And I'll continue to say it over and over again. Adoption, the ability to raise other children is absolutely a fundamentally spiritual thing. It is a gift that is given that requires some of us to be able to say, we're going to arrive into a situation that has children and we're going to raise them because we've been uniquely capacitated to father, right? There are going to be men, because so let me relax. The society is geared to work together. So if you can imagine in a street, and I'm going to get why I use this example. If you can imagine that there's a street and there are 2 men, there are 10 women in the street, all of them have children. The 2 that are there, the 2 men that are there have a responsibility to then raise these kids. Excuse me, and they can raise them as much as they want to. They can engage, they can give of their lives as much as they want to. And if it is that, and you are answering that question, Adnasi, if it is that these people have been called to father, it may be that potentially they also father biologically children within the cohort of women that they have been given to raise children for. Let's just park that for a later on discussion on the different kinds of relational structures that exist, okay? Fatherhood is not husbandry. The 2 are not equal, quote unquote. Being a father does not require you to be a husband. So what's critical perhaps for us to acknowledge is that there are some people who are called to being fathers who might not necessarily be called to being husbands. And then there are some people who may be called to being husbands that are not necessarily called to being fathers. And for goodness sake, I hope that then those people are also married to people who are not called to being mothers. So you don't have the strain and the stretch that's there. But these ones that are called to being fathers, right, would need to engage at the level of their calling to understand just how much fathering is in them. Not necessarily at the level of number of children, at the level of depth, okay? Children are children, but not all children are the same. There may be children that are, Ashley there goes and says, Umatube, fatherhood predates being a husband. Absolutely, okay? So I'm trying to reintroduce, please walk with me. I'm trying to reintroduce relational structures that potentially existed within our systems of living prior to what coloniality has deemed the norm and the right thing, okay? Fathers are selected, right? And they are selected from the very best among us as men to father, okay? Because the ability to father is a generational imperative. The ability to husband is potentially sometimes neither here nor there, because you can be a great husband that might not necessarily impact the next generation. So you can be great to your wife and bring out the best in her, but if she or you or both of you are not attuned to purpose, there's really nothing that we can do. But you being a great father is something that automatically, okay, is going to be something that will impact the next generation. Magesi, I hear you completely. I'm just sharing, and you are free to differ with me on this one. And I'd love for you to differ with me. Some people have got the capacity to be great fathers, and they are called to be great fathers to their children, but they suck as husbands completely. They're just not going to be great at this husband thing, because at the fundamental base, when the elders were deciding on whether or not to give this person the ability to father, your feelings, no, the feelings of the person who would be giving them the child were not as important as the purpose that the child is going to potentially achieve. So the purpose of the child was more important than the feelings of their mother. So they wanted somebody who is going to father and father well, regardless of whether they are going to necessarily contribute towards the well-being of the mother's mental state. Okay, so when the community has great fathers, the community can thrive. Sometimes when the community has great husbands, those families with the great husbands, then it's just that family that thrives. Somebody help me say this better. The father that is there may be great. The husband that is there would be a great husband to yourself. And potentially that's where they stop. But the father that is great to the child has the potential to also be a great father to other children that may be around who would need that. And when those children have the taste of this great father, they are able to then thrive and move into the purpose areas that they need to get to. Okay? But I appreciate the comment that you're making, and it is valid. Okay? So now we're speaking about that relational system. So if there's an agreement that says you are going to father, if you are going to father and you're going to bring about this okay, let's take it one by one before we move to the others. We should look at fathering outside of the romantic concept, but more on, and they'll continue, how do we recognize the character of being a good father? Yeah. Okay, let's deal with this slowly. Okay? The community, and I base it on the community, right? The community's well-being is really hinged on great mothers and great fathers. Those two spaces are hinged on the divine feminine and the divine masculine. The divine masculine and the divine feminine move and continue to, as it were, upgrade into fatherhood and motherhood, because then they become generational in their way of thinking. There are rites of passage that need to show us that you are ready to father or mother. Okay? Being a woman, being a man, does not automatically make you a father or a mother. The two can be two different groups of people. Okay? So when the man is being baked to being a father, there are some potential things that would happen in his life that would give us an indication that care has been established, that wisdom has been established, that understanding of long-term prioritization has been established, that purpose understanding has been established, all of those things with the aim of passing it on to the next generation, okay? And that is very different from the conversation around manhood that just stops at purpose, it stops at wealth and wisdom and work, within the context of themselves primarily, and then of course spiraling out into the community from the perspective of being a great man. There is a level of manhood that is being a great man, and then there is a level which, respectfully, deeper than that, higher than that, is the level of being a great father. Because fatherhood is the thing that pulls manhood out of a boy. So, outside of the romantic concept, right? Purpose is important. So it can be within the romantic concept. There can be fathers that are then sitting within the space of their relationships at a romantic level, and they bring those skill sets and giftings and growth to bear, and that maturity. But there are others that may sit outside of the romantic concept and are great fathers to children that where they don't have a romantic relationship with the mothers. Okay, it's important. How do you recognize the character of being a good father? I touched on that, Telemain, in that there's a purpose recognition on the person. So you would recognize that the person is being a great father, particularly in their ability to bring out purpose in the people that they are fathering. And you see the fatherhood not necessarily just within the context of their children. You see that kind of lens of being a father that moves through even with people that may be peers, but because of the wisdom that's there, this person is able to bring out the best, is able to have uncomfortable conversations, is able to pull out this kind of thing from the people around us, right? So you're saying here, but those great fathers are damaging the mothers. Moholo, remember Kutsane Amme? Yeah, I think that didn't quite finish. Fatherhood has generational implications, absolutely. Husband is for a wife, father is for the offspring. I agree there. Quite interesting to see. I just want to see. Yes, husband and wife doesn't automatically qualify you to be a good parent. That is critical. Dumela Marosi. What's also important, yes. They father everyone they come into contact with. That's the word. You are doing the things that make the pots to can happen. Fathers are not just fathers to their children, okay? They are fathers outside of the context of their children, and their fatherhood, and this is to me perhaps where the root of it comes from. Perhaps to an extent, some of our church communities have bastardized it. But there are people where a person can look at someone younger and see a father in them. Because this father, this aspect of fatherhood does not have an age to it. You father even your wife. It sounds very, and it sounds like your wife then almost becomes your child. No. But the notion of fatherhood is one that says, are you able to bring out the best in me? Where, yeah, and as varo wana na le diwampona gore ke batla go ignore fandiwane and ba nkisa ko teng. You have a responsibility to, as a man that has graduated, you've graduated from boyhood, you've come into manhood, right? That's the next step. But then you need to graduate from boyhood to fatherhood. And in graduating to fatherhood, you graduate to fatherhood before you have children. We see you as a father before your biological seed is planted, okay? And you bring the biological seed that you come into is a direct result of the fact that at a spiritual, at a societal level, You are bringing about you're bringing about goodness. You are fathering. You have offspring. Okay, this is why we look at you to bring goodness into the family. Okay, so the father is then a level that at a familiar level and a community level one reaches as a man. You then become someone that can command stuff to come out. Ashley speaks of a father as kingship. You become a king that creates princes and princesses that would become kings and queens under your tutelage, under your guidance. You have a responsibility as the man to move into the space of wisdom so that you can guide, so that you can, bring about even better sense within the people that are around you. And I'll use the word children loosely because it's not just children from the perspective of your offspring. Okay, being a father is critical, particularly to the well-being of that community, because it is the father, it is the king father. Yes, man. It is the king father that can decree, okay, that can decree that we're going to engage in this particular battle. We're going to conquer this particular space. This is why the king is called the father of the nation. Okay, this is why the president is called the father of the nation, because we recognize that at its base, when someone has reached fatherhood, they've reached the epitome of the male species. That their very presence, that when they walk into the room, that there is a sense of dignity that the man can have, right? A sense of awe around him. But the father, when a father summons people, they listen. They have no choice but to listen, because it is the father, it is the king father that then says to the child, you are going to inherit this particular portion of land. I am giving it to you. And because I'm giving it to you, I would like you to sit in this seat, to be able to do these things, to be able to move. So then the father becomes at their base somebody that is uniquely called to guide, to rule, to sit at the helm and to hold up, right? To hold up the individuals around them to reach their potential. Sahmet says, so you call out the things they lack as if they were, you believe in them becoming. Absolutely. This is why in Christian tradition they've called God our Father. This is also the understanding that was rooted in African principle, that you needed to move very quickly from boyhood to fatherhood. And when you get to fatherhood, you are then able to move from the perspective of just seeing potential. That's where manhood lies, right? Manhood can see potential. Fatherhood brings potential into reality. Okay, you make things to be. You bring out the president. The president must have a father. You bring out the individual's best space. Okay, it's an important thing, and yes, that balance that you're mentioning, Naledi, is important. That there are also husbands, but not just fathers. So there's a sense in which they need to potentially make dance within themselves. Okay, but that relational agreement around fatherhood is something that gives it bestows a lot of honor. on a man that has understood it. Okay, it bestows a lot of power on the man that's understood this, particularly because it gives this man the ability to speak things, and it gives this man the ability to say, okay, I recognize what's going on, but these are the things that I want to bring across. These are the stuff that I want to bring about. It gives him the ability to father outside of blood. And in fathering outside of blood, permit me to say the natural response of those who have birthed the children or those who are being fathered is love. It is love. It is the natural response. And so this father needs to have their discernment right in order to recognize that because I am fathering, because I am doing this, there are people that are going to respond with love, respond with romantic love, respond with whatever. I need to direct that love into the space that is appropriate. Where it is appropriate that response is good and it goes that way, yes, amen, that's fine. Where it's not appropriate for that response to go into the romantic space, then you need to direct it into a space where it deserves to be. And that's where we then define reward. Okay? So it's important that then, let me go back to the example that I was using where there may be two men and there are 10 homes, and then the women that are there have given birth to children and the children are growing. One of the reward systems that one of the women may use is to say that we will submit to the leadership of this man. And we are prepared to submit to the leadership of this man because we've seen the wisdom that he brings both to me as a woman and to the children that are here. And so we have no problems submitting to that particular leadership with or without a marital contract. Right? I'm just trying to get us to dismantle this view that it's only, marriage moves and then we... There are spaces where it is that these agreements were put into place. Okay? It's that particular view where this mother can, this mother submits to that particular individual or that particular father. And then because that was the submission, at a spiritual level, because whatever things were done, whatever, views were put in, then the people are able to then come together and agree, Uguti, we're going to live life with me having a responsibility for this particular family, because this family is saying to me that they recognize my leadership, they recognize my fathering, and so they're going to give to me the rewards that are applicable to me. Those rewards can be whatever is decided on by those two adults in that space. If the reward is, I still want to have more children and I believe that you can father them biologically, that is it. If this woman then begins to say, I want these children to be called by your name, that is a reward. If it is that then this mother can say, I would like that there must be an agreement between our two families, my family and your family, that we will always take care of each other and we will take your leadership and we will invite you to our very serious and sacred spaces. You will have a word in there. Your word will be leadership. Your word will be listened to because we recognize that you are the kind of father that we want to then move with and we want to grow in. If the families agree on that, okay, we then have systems that are developed. We have a system that can be developed where these families can agree to do that, and they don't necessarily have to be married to bring that about. They can bring that about because they understand that this particular person has order. We know that these people understand that we are moving into this space. Okay? So when these families then agree that this particular family has got leadership, Umatube is going way ahead of me. When they agree that this family has got leadership, they come and they greet at this family. Suddenly there are practices that are developed where this family becomes a spot or place of leadership. And because this father is bringing out amazing things in his own biological children, the children of the other mothers look at these children and say, you know, we understand why this person is put in leadership. They are a king father. And now the son is looked at as a king. And then we have the birth of a monarchy, we have the birth of a movement, and then the nation is born. But it starts at the level of great fatherhood. Because it is great fatherhood that is able to say, I can see that there is a lack in this particular home, and I'm going to make a plan for it. I'm going to understand what is necessary in order for us to come to a place of meeting that need. And sometimes it may be that the need is my wisdom. That family may have everything that they need from the perspective of money, houses, lands, all sorts of stuff. They just needed you to see them and for you to then look at them and bring about the best versions of themselves. That's all they needed. And so when you do that, you then become this father in that home that is able to uplift that space. Notice how I didn't say that these people are married. But that relational agreement exists. The relational agreement exists through ritual. The relational agreement exists through covenant. The relational agreement exists through being renewed periodically, where it is that these people are able to say, we are still submitted to this family. We are still agreed with this family, right? So that's the relational agreement that we sort of traversed through. Now we want to move into the one, and this one is important for us to remember. Polygamy originates within that space. If you will, there are other agreements that also originate in that kind of space, right? So there are systems that are in place where it may be that our family can look at your family and say, oh, we can see an anointing in there, and we'd like a child from that family. That's a relational agreement that has certain reward, right? Where it is that we're going to say, we've seen that there's a particular anointing and this anointing is going to be good for our family. We go, we ask. We're not asking for marriage, we're asking for the ability to engage the womb. We are asking for the ability to enter the womb, particularly with the right frameworks, so that tomorrow we are not told we've damaged anybody. It's very hard to damage people that are fertile ground, that are amazing. We must perhaps think about what that looks like. But we have the ability to go and say, we have seen, and our elders have told us that within this family, there lies a certain level of gifting that we require in order for us to be able to produce the purpose that we need. Our son is readily available to potentially plant seed within one of the wombs that are available here, and we would like access. And that family can agree to say, okay, we see that there's access that is being wanted. What we would like is the following. In order for you to have access to this womb, we would want this and this and this and this. And these are the things that you'd need to do. These are the ways you'd need to approach. These are the ways you'd need to be able to understand this stuff. When those things are potentially then understood, they are delivered, they are gifted, then it is that these people would be able to say, hi, fertile ground, gifted ground, wonderful ground of our elders. We have been asked by these people that have been shown our greatness by yourselves. We believe that you guys have agreed. We want to be able to then provide for their need. They have promised XYZ to us. We have agreed on XYZ. We want to be able to have this happen. Please allow for the seed to sit. Please allow for the seed to actually lodge and water it and grow it so that these people can get the child that they need for their home to be able to be what it is needing to be. The elders agree, the seed sits. This person is not married. Okay? This person is not married to this one. There was an agreement that was made to bring about this child. The child was brought about. And then this particular individual, thank you so much, Musa, for the gift. This individual can go back to their family as an individual who has birthed this child. And then there are differing sort of ways of doing this. This person could be looked at, if this child potentially then becomes the king, this person could be looked at as the queen mother that birthed this particular child. And in birthing the child, what is critical for then them to acknowledge is what role will this woman then play within the child's life. But there may be other agreements that say, no, you don't necessarily have a role. What has happened here is, of the things that we have requested from your family, we have also given some of the things that would allow you to then appear as though this child that you have brought is not a child that ought to be, quote unquote, counted, if that is the word, when we go and speak to someone that wants to marry you. Because that person would have no right to ask about that history. It was a sacred arrangement that only family members that are few knew about. And then this person, when she is asked, do you have children? She'd say no. Not because she ignores the child that she has birthed, but because that child does not belong to her. That child, Jesus does not belong to Mary. Let me put it like that, in a language that perhaps, the people will understand. But she was used as an incubator. And that story, I have a sneaky suspicion, comes from other stories that have been put in African tradition. Right? So we see within the biblical sort of storyline the usage of African concepts that tell us there was an agreement at a spiritual level that said this person is going to birth the child, but the child does not belong to the person. This person is going to move and have other children outside of this. We needed the womb for this particular matter. And because we got the womb for this particular matter, we are then thankful for this womb. We move on with our lives. Okay? And this woman is also then able to move with their lives. Okay? I hear you, Griggs, when you're saying these concepts scream misogyny. I'm only using the example on the one end, okay? Because the opposite is also true. Our systems were such that even men were being asked for. We need seed from this particular family to be brought into our home so that we can birth this particular space. We're not looking for you to come and father. We just needed the seed. So I'm just trying to also bring that about in the perspective that it was not just the wombs that were required, it was also the seed that is required. But what I'm trying to bring about more pointedly is that these systems did not sit within the context of marriage. They were brought about within the context of relational agreements that were predicated on spiritual agreements that existed before. Okay. And obviously, we then have purpose as the guiding force or as the base that gives us the route for us to be able to move into these purpose agreements. Now, let's come into, good evening, Simi. Let's come into relational agreements that we may know from that perspective. This was one that the elders wanted to speak about. We spoke about that relational agreement that did not have marriage at its core. We spoke about the supremacy of fatherhood within the space. One day we'll also, when they allow, speak about the beauty and real power of motherhood within the space. But today we're just speaking about that fatherhood and how great that is. And then we also spoke about the ability to father not being linked to age, not being linked to, thank you, Lumiere, not being linked to designations or anything like that, but that fatherhood is a deeply big thing. It's a responsibility, and it is something that is likened to kingship because the father is able to call out stuff, is able to do so much within the life of the person that they're fathering, because sometimes they don't necessarily father the child that is a child in the biological sense, or even a child that they've adopted. They father people that are around them. Okay, when it is that we introduce the notion of marriage, covenant, relational agreement, right? The other one was relational agreement that was predicated on purpose area that needed a particular thing. Thank you, Simi. This one is on covenant, Dumela Cosmic Flower. So when we get to the space of the covenant one, okay, let's not speak about the covenant one because I want to speak about the covenant one, but my voice is leaving when I speak about the covenant one because there are other people on this app that address the covenant one. So let's stick to the one that is not, and in fact, it's wrong for me to call it one that is uncovenanted. It is a covenant, but not in the sense of marriage, okay? So, yeah, Baholo, I'm getting back to the one that is not necessary. So these ritualistic or these ritual agreements that were made between families are the agreements that have given birth at times. They've given birth to people that are unique, people that are amazing, people that, and this is the point that they wanted to get to, is the originator of the agreement. Excuse me. The originator of the agreement is the one that can then lay claim to the purpose that must be fulfilled in the child's life. Let me say that again. The originator of the agreement is the one that can lay claim to the purpose over the child's life, because they are the ones that have seen that we need this particular child in order for us to accomplish this particular purpose. If they are the ones that are bringing about the purpose, they are the point of identity for the child, okay? But not just at the space of naming, okay, and clanning. They are the space of identity from the place of purpose as well. They are the space of identity from the place of protection, because in order for the purpose to thrive, it needs to be protected by someone. And so the protective elders are then able to receive this child and say, we have accomplished the purpose that we wanted, and this child will be raised by whoever, but because they are in this clan and they have been required for this clan, they bear this clan's name, okay? To bear the clan's name also means they have a responsibility to write their story into the clan. So they then become the people that are, so in fact, this is also the process that allows us to give birth to clans. It may be that people can say, we want to birth a particular clan. These are the things that we're going to use. These are the symbols that we want. This is what we want to be called. And we want it to come from these particular families because they have this seed. or they have this womb. We would like them to give this to us so that we can move into the space that we want to produce this clan. And so the children will then be named by those that requested them. I hope I'm still walking with you. The children will be named by those that requested them. Okay? Now, the ones who requested them may sometimes come into the space, bring the child in, and it's wonderful, okay, that the child is there and the child bears the name of the ones that requested. So now I am the one that requested. My name is those of the elephant, and so I requested the womb and the child comes through. Okay? The child comes through and then the child now comes into my particular space, family, as it were. When they come into my space, I introduce them to their people because I requested it, right? I don't want to get into the complex scenario where there is a point of, quote, inability to have children, but there is a need for children within the space of somebody that says, I would like that man and this woman to have a child that I will raise. That becomes a three-way agreement. They are there. You might not think they are there, but they are there. And then that child will not be named by either of the people that produce their genetic material, but at a spiritual level, the person that requested is the one that will name the child. Okay? That's the first. The other one is when the child is born through natural means and so forth, but was requested by someone outside. That's where your Soshangan example bears some mentioning, Matubi. You are birthed here and you are wonderful here, but you were not actually requested here. You were requested by family X. And family X then has the ability to say to the family that birthed you, Stella umntwana. And we would like to take the child because we requested the child. Now, because we're so far removed from those agreements that may exist, we don't even know, are we birthing our own children? Are we part of the community? Are we this? What's going on? We're all sort of together. You're asking here, what of the ones who birth and have to contend with our living consensus? I need you to just expand on that a little bit so that I can give perspective. Okay? Yes, correct. So the aim of tonight's live is to get you to understand that within your clan are people that are not there by blood. Tini Indo. There are people within the clan that are not there by blood. They are there by purpose, because purpose is bigger than blood. You remember I said fatherhood is not blood. Fatherhood is bigger than... So purpose dictates, right? So you may be told that this person is part of your lineage and so on. They're your great-grandfather. If you go and do DNA tests to the person, you find there's no match. But they are a father. There's that term again. Okay, they were needed to bring about the excellence in the grandfather, and that grandfather then was able to be in relationship with somebody that was covenanted to them, or there was agreement, and they then brought forth your father or your your mother as well, or your uncle, whatever the case might be, to then bring about you, okay? There are fallacies in the requested because the natural can override the requested. Absolutely, the natural can override it. So let me just simplify that. It's also good for us to recognize that the spiritual realm can request one thing and the natural can do something completely different, right? So if the natural does something completely different, it does not negate the request. The request is still standing. And the request is standing from the perspective of we wanted these two people to get together because we needed a child. Now, in the natural, these two people just don't agree that they need to have a child because they just cannot see past each other. My goodness, why would I want to have a child with you? There's nothing great about you. But it's important then, if these two people are also spiritually attuned, to ask why, okay? Why these two people are going to potentially need to be together. And if these people are going to be vehement about their negation of the request, then they also forego the blessings that are associated with that request. They forego the beauty that is associated with the request, and they then also render themselves outside of purpose because they are saying that, perhaps let me put it this way, if they are unable to provide an even better arrangement, okay, an even better arrangement than what is being requested, then they render themselves outside, okay? What of the child who then grows up and does not align with the requested? If the father and mother have done their job, they would then have also put into the mind of the child that there is a particular thing that we are raising you for, and you need to come into this gift. You need to come into this space. Remember, I said that we're here for purpose. Hello, Diana. We're here for purpose more than the feeling. Okay? So we're not... Permit me to also say, right, that everything that I've said is at the level of purpose first, feelings later. Okay? Makesi, what of the child who is denied earthly existence? Yay, there are some old women in my boardroom that are crying because of your question. So there are some people so there can be an arrangement and an agreement that stipulates that there's going to be a particular child. And because of non-protection, and these elders want to say, because of non-protection, and because la sasankale everywhere, you are everywhere, going everywhere, doing everything, touching everybody, things become complex. And where things become complex, sometimes the elders intervene to stop this particular individual from arriving because the situation is not conducive to purpose. Portia, purpose is more important than feelings. Feelings that are submitted to purpose can be a guide. So these elders are saying, you guys have bought into this space or lie that purpose is painful, or that the sacrifices of purpose are things that are wrong intrinsically, that your pleasure is more important, your comfort is more important than purpose. And the reason why you admire other societies, they are doing what they learned from you. Because when you got into relationships before, when you got into agreements with people before, it was based in purpose. It was not based in pleasure. You birthed children with people because there was agreement. You didn't just give birth. You got into relational agreements because you saw something, the both of you saw something in each other. You didn't just go. Right now, they are everywhere. Le jola le botle. You do what you want. You're no longer listening to the agreements that sit within the family. And so because you are no longer listening, you've given yourselves over to this space outside of purpose where it's just pleasure. And your relational agreements and the things that you base your relationships on are very flimsy. Because if they are flimsy, the stuff that you build in your relationships are also flimsy. Thus, there is very little that you pass on to the next generation. You live, you die. And when you join us, we ask you, what did you do? You are unable to answer. Because you went over the agreements that we would have put in place that were for your own good, by the way. So I want to just say, Simi, there was something that you said, and then the other thing was okay, because you said here, the existence of that child in a misaligned position does more harm than good, hence the denial. Hey, yeah. Please let's also be careful, because that denial is painful. Yes, it's true perhaps that we've not done the work on ourselves to create the environment that allows for that child to come through, but that denial is painful, right? Because we desire beautiful things, and our desires are sometimes, when they're rooted in truth, reflections of the desires of our elders. But if we're not willing to learn some of the lessons that are key there, we're not necessarily going to be able to bring about the stuff that we need to bring about. Relational agreements are not just marriage, okay? The relational agreements that need marriage are those that are of their own sort of category. And within the context of marriage, there are monogamous situations, there are polygamous situations, there are all sorts of arrangements that exist. And marriage at its core is also bringing about the space of a different kind of stability as opposed to the relational agreement that exists. Here, and again, we've got to then do marriage in sort of the ancient way. Here, we're not also just speaking about changing surnames. So we don't, that's something that also is in the space contested, because for all intents and purposes, it is possible for the people that have a relational agreement. In fact, they're saying that that's the original marriage. That's big. That's a lot. Because purpose was at the core. And these mothers who would then say that they want to submit, or the mother that would then say they want to submit to the leadership of this person, would have certain sort of ritual that is redeemed or repeated as well, that says, I am still with you. I am called by your name. Why you gonna? I am called by your name. I am still sitting in my space. I have built this home myself. I've built this home myself with these children, but I'm called by your name. At Revelation space, the people, the women will say they want to just be called by them. It might be because they've understood an African spiritual principle that said that I want to be called by your name. But to be called by that name requires a sense of responsibility and consistent wisdom. If I no longer get the wisdom from you, I leave. your name. I'm no longer called by your name because you are proving that you are not worth the kind of submit. You are no longer being a father. And so we see your fatherhood as a space that we can run into, that we can find refuge in. And when you are no longer being a father, we leave. We leave. And so potentially they're just bringing about that these women were okay. These children were okay. And yes, there may have been a space where the father was needed, but another father can be provided if this one is not doing the job. And it's critical for the father that is not doing the job to realize that once that position is lost, you can't get it back. Because the agreement that would have been made between yourself would then move away. Mr. V, how about spiritual wife, soulmate? That term, the term spiritual life has got such a lot of derogatory or negative connotation. But a wife of the elders, a wife that has been selected by the elders, is a wife that is spiritual first. And there are agreements at a spiritual level. But because we're so afraid of our own practices, we're so afraid of our own strength, we're so afraid of our own ways, we tend to believe that some things are very hectic where actually they are not. There are some agreements that require for people to do certain things, but because those things look rural, they look backward, quote unquote, they don't do them. It may be that because this person is such a great father, that the way to show the agreement to submit would be to give cows to that person. We have now thought that cows can only go one way. These women are very insistent tonight. These women had wealth. Women had wealth. Okay? And because women had wealth, they were able to also go and gift and spoil and love on their partners or people. And maybe not just one across their lives. So the people would think that, it's just, we're in this sacred spot. And if that was the relationship, if that was the relationship that was there with that particular individual, it was okay for the person to say, I am with this person at this moment. And as a sign that I am with this person and I enjoy their company, I would like to gift them with XYZ. I like to gift them with a cow. And even when I leave, they will always know that such and such a person was always there. And potentially they may want to engage in the... I've been asked to take the conversation offline with you, ne? So I'll do that. Because there are answers that you may need to get, and you need to get a little specific. I'll do that with you. So these women were able to gift. These women were able to do so much more than what we think is the quote norm today. These women were able to request husbands, lifelong partners. Some of them were able to band together and say, no, we want a particular husband. Some of them were able to band together and say, we will be each other's partners. And we want it to be acknowledged within the space of the community that we are like this. Not that we're going to be sexual with each other, but we recognize that the two families that we have are critical. And because we are critical to each other's survival, this is what we're going to do. Mamvubu, I think that that practice has got to potentially come back. And the men that go and request husbands have got to be judged by their ability to father first. So we've got to look at the people around you that you are fathering before we can say you'll be a good husband. You know, and I think that it's critical for us to be able to do that, to potentially say, no, you won't do well in this thing. You may want it, but you won't. According to the standards that we've put, we need to ask you, who are you fathering? Who are you leading? What have you brought out of those people? Give us tangible examples of places where you've brought out greatness from people. And once you can answer that question for us, then we can say to you, oh, it's fine, go ahead and marry. Go ahead and do good things. And we agree with you, Mamvubu. Please go and fetch the person. And say that, excuse me, I want to be with you. I want to be submitted. Do the things that this world calls correct, because I would do them. Because note how when we get into the place of that agreement, and if you don't want to necessarily go, sort of the whole 9 yards of quote unquote marriage and don, go into the place of a ritual agreement on relationship that has as much of a bearing on your life as the marriage, where you are able to say, aunts, people here, I've spoken to this guy and this guy understands we're going to live a life together and we're going to raise children together, and we want to say to both our elders, this is what's going to happen. We don't necessarily want to get into the space of marriage simply because we believe it might be a bit contaminated. I want to keep the space of my clan. He wants to keep the space of his clan, but we want to bring the two across because I've noticed a leader in him. I've noticed a father there, and I want to be submitted. The story of Esther, today it's exactly that. You are allowed. You are allowed. And I think that women have thought that this is something that is taboo. No. But because, yes, some of you guys as gents are blind. You can't see what is right in front of you. Absolutely. And so you must be able to go and say, hey, what's going on here? Can we please? Can we? And the other thing that I want to put across is please allow for evolution, okay, of this. Oh, it sounds like I'm speaking about guys, but I'm speaking about everybody. Please allow for evolution of this man, because what's going to be great fatherhood today is not necessarily what's going to be great fatherhood in 10 years' time. And so what's critical is this guy has got to keep up. How does he keep up? He keeps up with spiritual practice. He keeps up with opening his mind, with understanding further, with deepening his knowledge, getting his wisdom right, so that we can get to the place where he understands that fatherhood is ever evolving, ever great, a space of limitlessness, so that you can pull out greatness even from greatness. That the CEO can look at you and say, how do I become a better individual? And you are able to make the CEO a better person or a better CEO because you pull it out of them. Okay. Yeah, I think also it's important, these gents are also coming through to say that, yes, they may have also picked people, and done life with them. But sometimes the people that they picked seem to have transgressed some of those agreements, or they, as the gents, failed in those agreements. And so, because they failed in those agreements, thank you so much, Mamvu, they then were not able to reach the spaces. They were not able to reach the spaces that they needed to reach. And so when their children come and need to do what is necessary, the shame that has sat on them sits on their children. And you can imagine what happens sort of generations later, where somebody now is dealing with 3-4 generations worth of shame at the ability of not having completed this. The relational cycle becomes something completely warped, and they are unable to reach what they need to reach. So some guys are non-committal, wishy-washy, unable to do stuff because even within their generations prior, within their lineage, are men who were scared of people, scared of family, scared to go and be with the woman that they actually needed to be with. And so you intimidate, but you trigger the inner great-grandfather who, by blood or not, is reminded of the woman that he failed with. And so, ma'am, if you are in a relationship in a space like that, and you've been given divine wisdom to be able to guide, to lead, to walk with this guy, please, Oscar Fela Pelo, don't be impatient, guide and lead from the perspective of understanding that they can get there if you open some doors for them to get there. Equally, the other side of it is that some people are just not committal because they are not committed, and you should not waste your time with them. You need to move on very quickly. So the discernment is what I pray for, that you will be able to recognize that this gent is one worth investing in. Oh yeah, Bagaitsu relationships are a give and give, according to these elders. Thank you, Shares. Relationships are a give and give. They're not a give and take, they're a give and give. Our situations, our societies thrived because they were able to give, where the fathers were able to give to the men, and the men were able to give to the women. Sorry, the fathers were able, yes, the fathers were able to give to the men, but the fathers were able to give to the mothers, and the mothers were able to give to the fathers. Thank you, Ntabi saying, i-providence yasmosha, because if you are in the family and you have been blessed with the financial resource to do amazing things within this family, why are you expecting them from me? Who told you that you can't build your own home? Who told you that the women before you didn't build their own homes and then go and say, we want somebody who is going to bring wisdom and greatness and wonder out of these homes that we've built? Because they recognize that we can build it, and this is where we can stop. But we need a certain kind of wisdom that we can see from a father to give this home a roof at a spiritual level. Ndadwaka, my brother, why are you seeking to be the one that is going to give money in the relationship as though it's just your responsibility? What pressure that you have. Divinely orchestrated relationships are not just reciprocal, but they are community changing. it's important for us to recognize that there are some relationships that do nothing for the community. They're just there. But there are some, the TikTok Zulu man said, Umuntu wesifazane awawakhe." Shem. Yay, they are missing out. They're missing out. You know, I want to say, the things we think are, this thing of bringing the food into the home was a uniquely feminine thing to do. The thing of preparing the food was a uniquely masculine thing to do. The way that we have sort of developed our systems now is very different to the way that the systems were developed before. It is the woman that would tend to crops which are easier to sell or trade in. And even the woman, because she's so connected to the soil and the ground and she's spiritually attuned, would be spiritually attuned even to the kraal. The kraal, if you want to know that wealth is a uniquely feminine thing, look at the shape of the kraal. Look at the shape. If you want to know who needs to actually build the hut, look at the shape of the hut. It is an incomplete circle. It's what we call the gap altar, as it were. But that speaks to the womb. That speaks to the divine feminine. The kraal, the place where the wealth lives, is uniquely feminine. The one that looks after the wealth is uniquely masculine. The one who brings the wealth in any if you want to take a look at it, please just go and look at the fact that there are homes that don't have cows until it is that potentially their daughter then leaves, and gets married. Let's go there. Then the family brings, or the family has cows. And because that is the case, again, I will repeat, the bringing the food into the home is a uniquely feminine thing. Taking that food and then bringing agriculture into the home. Yeah? Bringing agriculture into the home. And I want to take that example that you're making, Mvubu. Bringing agriculture into the home was uniquely feminine because the ground responds to you. So you are the one that would plant the trees. You are the one that would potentially be looking after the trees. Then it is my job to take those trees and create the structure for the kraal. So I am not a multiplier. I am a manipulator of what has been multiplied. I am a developer of what is provided to me. Perhaps it's a different view, okay? Because when you bring this money into the home, and I am a father, I must father that money. That money must produce children. Fatherhood is it's not just at the level of children. Again, we agreed earlier. It is at the level of bringing out the best in everybody and everything. And this is why then you can't, as the woman, bring your garden, bring your forest, bring your trees to someone who has not shown capacity to be able to father, to bring the best out of what was given to them. Because under the tutelage of a great father, it is that the children of that father, whether they are his age, older, younger, whatever the case might be, grow. The father, let me give you a divine secret that they are whispering. The father takes a clump of the ground, speaks to it while holding onto the woman. Because the woman is fertile ground, this is fertile ground, speaks to both of them to say, you are now, I'm gonna stop. I'm giving away deadly things here. I've come to the end of the life. I appreciate you so much. I've come to the end of the life because the place I wanted to go to, not yet. I'm getting into other stuff. So I appreciate you so much. I thank you for having come through. It's important. What I was speaking about is also a secret of fatherhood. Okay, let's go there. Okay, let me just go in. It is important that you are able to then grab the same clump of soil and hold on to this woman and speak abundance and call it out of both of them. And as she works on this soil works on her. And when the two begin to work on each other, you will be the one that bears the fruit, because that will be your reward. May you be blessed in everything that you do. For those that want to speak to me in the DMs, they are open. I would like to encourage you to get into the space of understanding why you're in the relationships that you're in. Marriage, relational agreements, one and the same thing. But it is also, because we are where we are, we need some of those frameworks, for lack of a better word, for people to be able to partake in the way that they need to. And so nothing wrong with marriage, nothing wrong with engaging in it. It's all good. So, yeah. May your relationships make you better. May your partners make your elders smile. May your elders make you smile with the choice of partner or partners that they have for you. May it be that you have come to the place of understanding just how powerful you are, just how amazing you are, particularly given the wisdom that has been shared tonight. And for those who continue to see a father in me, I appreciate you. And I do not take that lightly. I do not take that term lightly, because I've had to explain what that means tonight. And so if you view me as someone that pulls out amazing things from you, that shares this wisdom, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. And I look forward to I look forward to your submission and your reward, and you moving in ways that would underscore that you've sat in the wisdom of the great elephants that have come before us. And so I am their latest vessel. I am not starting a cult, but I'm merely just saying that there's order in the spiritual realm, and these teachings are such that they require we move in a particular way, and we understand each other, and we understand what it looks like. Okay. please be good, and be good to each other, and be good to yourselves. And may you have less stress, and may you be given the tools to live in purpose. When I'm a billionaire, and people are going to come through, but we have not been given that mandate. Sharp, sharp.